So next up, we've got Lisa and Gareth has bought a fan club with him, I think. So
I haven't brought a fan club with me. I've not got one member.
Oh, you got Lisa. See how I can play to an audience.
Take my glasses off because I can't see my phone notes if I don't take my glasses off. Shall I have control of this? Or?
Yes, please do. Whether it's a fan club or a critical friend, I'm not sure.
Both are useful. Both are useful. So thank you so much for coming today and for the invitation to talk. Gareth and I have been in each other's offices and back pockets and drinking lots of that coffee for quite a while now, trying to think about how we could take forward a real embedding of well-being in the curriculum. And this is kind of some reflections on where we've got to up to now, how things came about, what we've learnt about each other and learnt about each other's teams along the way, progress made and plans for the future as well. So.
Okay, yeah, that's the first bit there. So it's probably worth saying, I'm actually a nurse. You know, that's kind of how I think of myself, more than academic. And I've been at the university a year and a half, and it's been a really interesting experience. But that's what my background's in. And there was some research done in 2018 by Student Minds and the University of Derby and King's College into academics' experience of working with students with mental health problems or was struggling with the well-being. And one of the themes that came out from that research was a perception from academics that there was a separation between academic schools and well-being. And what one of the academics from that study talks about this kind of feeling that we were here, well-being's over there. They don't really know what we do, and we don't really know what they do. And our role, our school-based wellbeing practitioner role, which is linked with all the schools within the university, is the idea with that to try and bridge that gap, that separateness between wellbeing and the academic schools. And we do that in three main ways. Is we come into schools and we provide talk sessions on a kind of wellbeing theme that we try and connect with your students' groups. So we try and make it relevant to what they're studying and the level they're studying at. We provide support as well for academics who might have a difficult kind of situation with a student struggling with the well-being. And we also do direct support for students, for complex students who are struggling with the well-being but might not come forward to the main office for support. So that's the kind of three main areas that we work with. And we know from our own internal research that within our teaching sessions, the short-term change that goes on when we work with students in terms of them becoming more aware of strategies to look after their own well-being, to support the learning, but also motivation as well to use those strategies to put them in place with the hope that will support learning. So on a very short term, we know that something happens there and something works. We also know from some academic feedback that our role is beginning to bridge that gap between well-being and schools. And this is just a quote from one of the senior academics within the business school. And he can see that gap that students used to fall through, where they wouldn't come forward to well-being, it's beginning to get bridged. I mean, we've got a long way to go with that, but that's some of the feedback that we're getting. So we can see that this role, this school-based role we've got, has some good use. But the question is how do we make this a more long-term and consistent experience for students? And I think that's what Lisa had in mind when she first approached me with some ideas about curriculum design.
It was, and Gareth's guilty because he invited me to a Student Minds session, didn't you? A conference about a year or so ago, and I met some of the team there for the first time. Obviously knew Gareth, and it was we were in the throes of redesigning our curriculum at the time, and just jigsaw pieces starting to come together in my head. If you've been to another Deep Forum, then you may have heard me talk about pushing and flexing the barriers to traditional assessment or traditional course structure. And I won't talk too much about that now, actually not at all. It's a pass-fail model that we have at level 4. It's 6-week block teaching. It's all formative assessment rather than, except for one piece of reflective, summative assessment at the end. And we knew with such a change, we really need to scaffold the students all the way through that transition into HE, through that first year and beyond into level 5 as well, where we adopt a more traditional kind of curriculum. So we are terming our embedding of wellbeing into the curriculum well connected. I don't have any modules except at level 6. So forgive me if I do use the term module. I don't mean module, I mean project or learning strand. So we have this learning strand and we're trying to develop it called well connected. And that is about really creating really space for the students to put in what's appropriate at the time. In my paperwork for revalidation, there's barely any granular detail. So we've left lots of gaps where Gareth can come in and support the students, particularly around assessment needs, particularly around maybe, anxiety and concerns about particular types of assessment or group work, conflict and, fairness within group work, etc. So we're doing lots of things, timetabled academic advisor sessions, taking students in critical action weeks off schedule and just learning with charity partners and assessing through work and tasks that we're given there. So lots of opportunities for us to fill creatively this time. But I resonate with what Gareth has just said. I wasn't the academic that said that, but I resonate with the academic who said, when students come to us and they give us, their concerns and they share them with us, that's a privilege, but it's a frightening one, and we're not always sure of how to take that forward. So we've created this space. We didn't really know what we were ever going to put in it to begin with. We created the space, and we're right at the moment now in our project of what are we going to put in those hours every week.
So one of the things we faced when trying to do this work together was to try and have a way to formulate what well-being is, because it's such a broad term and used in so many different ways now. And I can remember doing a teaching session, asking students for their feedback about what well-being meant, what it is. And the academic in the session contributed to that. And his kind of perception of it was, you go to a spa, that's it, basically. You treat yourself at a spa. So it's kind of like a really broad term. And we needed a way to try and anchor that term and use that to formulate about what we were doing. And there's many different models of well-being out there. We went for the 5 ways to well-being model. And the reason we did that was that it's already out there. It was really widely used during COVID. And it's kind of straightforward. It's self-explanatory in many ways. But quite importantly as well, it was adaptable. And hopefully we're going to show that today, aren't we, Lisa? The kind of adaptability of it. Yeah,
I think when we sat down to think, how should we present this talk? How should we present our reflections? We thought really we should be, to a certain extent, our own guinea pigs, shouldn't we? We should put our money where our mouths are, and we should use this framework in terms of our reflections. And my team, International Tourism Management, have been those kind of guinea pigs the whole way along. We've been subjected to kind of critical pedagogy, research itineraries, and now we're living this kind of framework to think, how do we feel, how do we reflect, what ideas and creativity do we have for our students? So we're going to flit around this. It doesn't make complete sense to do it in order, does it? So we're going to, as with all messy projects, we're flitting around our 5 areas. So do you want to begin, Gareth, maybe with Connect?
And I think, like Lisa says, it has been messy, and this may be messy, but we'll do our best. So,
We like messy. Messy's good.
so yeah, with the 5 ways to wellbeing, we've got those 5 areas, and in terms of connect, it basically means connecting with others is a good thing. It's it's good for our wellbeing. But in terms of developing and taking this forward and the schools-based role, the idea of connection with our schools, with the staff and students is it's at the heart of it, really. It's what we want to do to bridge that gap and to develop trust as well with schools. And to do that, I think it's took certain attitudes from the school-based practitioners to do that, to earn that trust. And the starting point with it is to be quite empathic in our approach to this work, and to try and understand the work of the academic schools and the academics within it, and the amount of demands and responsibilities that academics already have on top of dealing with students with wellbeing problems. So it's connecting, but it's also trying to connect in a way that understands your role and is empathic and responsive to it. And a big part of our role as well in terms of connecting is offering advice. But I think as this role's developed, and I'm sure my colleagues will agree with this, and they're all here today, all the school-based practitioners, is that our role, as much as anything, is about listening as it is to offering advice and kind of listening to the concerns of the schools. And schools have shared concerns, but often they have very different ones as well, depending on the students they have there and the subjects that they're doing. So it's that idea of connecting. And if us as school-based practitioners can try and meet with academics who are interested and kind of open to the idea of wellbeing being in the curriculum, and international tourism and Lisa's team have been really welcoming towards that, then we create a really good foundation for cross-service collaborative working. So I think it's took an attitude on our part of school-based to try and help create the conditions for that. And just one more thing with connection for us is I very much saw Lisa as the expert in this for quite a long time when we were working together. And there was a point where I was really shocked.
I'm laughing, by the way, internally now, completely.
There was a point I was shocked when Lisa said I was the expert on it. Mm-hmm. And that's partly what we struggled with in this and wrestled with, that idea about who are the experts, who needs to know. And as we've developed, we realise it touches so many different bits of the university and, of course, the students as well.
So the connections that I made to bring this about, or the connections that were necessary, went right through really across your service, across my team, up into different areas within the university, backed by CLT completely, up to Phil Cardew to get his, kind of say-so and backing at revalidation. The support from Hannah as Gareth's line manager, in terms of Gareth's time and ideas and creativity, and your own as well, and across the team, because I know you keep having group conversations about what we're doing, and Gareth is the medium or the channel by which that all comes back. So there are multiple connections, I guess, required to truly get cross-service collaboration. It's almost cross-institutional, isn't it? It has been. So I think we've been incredibly lucky to get those.
Next, we're going to jump about a bit on this, so we don't quite follow this. But in terms of being active, in the 5 ways, it's often thought about exercise or activity that's enjoyable, and it is enjoyable for us in our roles, coming into the schools and meeting people. But it has involved us leaving a place of kind of where we feel quite comfortable, which is the wellbeing office, the wellbeing team. We know the people there, we know the structure of it, we know how things work. We're comfortable working with students in distress because we've all come from professions before we came to university where we did that. What we're less comfortable and kind of know about is the whole structure of the schools we work in, who's who, how the courses run, and how things like the mitigation work and getting our heads around that and how we relate to that. So it's actively involved as physically leaving the wellbeing space and physically being present in our schools. And whether that's in the classrooms, being physically present with students and staff delivering there, whether it's basing ourselves in the admin offices, which we try and do when we can, because the admin offices seem to be the hub of the schools to me, and so where all the coming and going happens, or physically meeting students there for appointments in their schools. But there's something about developing a presence in the schools and physically being there and being active there. And if we can't do it physically, it's doing it digitally as well, and attending team meetings within the schools too. And as Lisa said, all this activity we do as school-based practitioners wouldn't work without the support of the rest of the university. And as our management, our structure, right up, like Lisa said, to the top, but also in regards to coming to deep conferences and CLT and the support around that as well. So the activity that we do is very much supported as a whole by the university too.
When I looked at Be Active, I think the whole project of curriculum design is almost about action. It's based on critical pedagogy. And I think if Alan were in the room, he'd probably, who leads on critical within CLT, he might agree with me that often critical pedagogy is much talked about and not sometimes a whole lot of action. So really bringing this critical pedagogy and underpinning to our course into being was absolutely key. And I knew I couldn't do that without the staff or without Gareth support, because in our research project, or my research project before, we knew that the students were potentially a constraining force in terms of how we would like to teach, their levels of anxiety, their levels of concern, their commitments, all the things that they've got going on in their lives. So for me, being active was about pushing forward and just nudging forward, rather than having a purist view of critical pedagogy, maybe, because HE is not like that anymore, is it? And we're all having to be measured on certain things. So rather than be one of Alinsky's, I know there's radical rhetoricals or rhetorical radicals. It probably means the same both ways. Rather than just be purist and do nothing, we thought it was better as a team to push forward and do something. And I think we're both allowing each other in this project for it not to be perfect. That's okay. It won't be. It will be the first iteration of an imperfect well-being embedded in the curriculum. But our action, research, and our ongoing kind of commitment will hopefully improve it every day. So that do what you can. There's no point being silent and groaning in the corner, oh woe is me, I've no agency as a lecturer anymore, because we can change things if we want to, and this is the way that we wanted to change.
Next up, I think we do take notice, which kind of means being aware of how you're feeling and kind of being in the moment, and it can be applied in different ways, but one aspect of it is kind of being aware about how you feel and the kind of things that are impacting on those feelings. And for me, I've got quite a graphic memory with this one in doing this course, and it involves waking up early one cold January morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, really quite anxious about this whole project with Lisa. I was thinking...
You wouldn't be the first, Gareth.
I was thinking, I don't really know what we're doing. I don't know what the aim is, can't quite get this. And I don't know how to do it either. And the kind of things we teach in our wellbeing sessions around breathing techniques, about grounding ourselves, they help me with the anxiety. But what I really needed to do was to connect, to go back to the idea of connection. And I went back and I connected with Hannah, she probably remembers this, and kind of talked through the worries about it and kind of my lack of clarity about what we were doing and the uncertainty about what we were doing. And Hannah directed me to Lisa. I talked to Lisa about it. And I felt much better after it. Still uncertain, but much clearer, kind of felt okay with the uncertainty. But my reflection on that was, is this how students feel if they don't really know what they're doing and they don't know how to do it? Because it's not a nice feeling, having experienced it myself in terms of trying to do something. And I mean, I'm someone who, I'm pretty trained in wellbeing. I know what I need to do, and I went and did it. But for a student who might feel that and be unclear, who won't come forward for support, who won't come and seek clarity from their academic team, that anxiety is just going to build. And you might be tempted to deal with it by drinking, by putting things off, or by dropping out your course even. And it just made me think about the importance of wellbeing in the curriculum and how learning and wellbeing are so closely linked. And I guess the importance of doing what we're doing. So hope for this is it just will make it a better experience for students.
When Gareth told me he'd be up at 3 a.m, I was horrified. I mean, that's normally my gig, to wake up at 3 a.m. and have a panic about, I don't know, annual monitoring review or something like that. So it was a real moment, I think, for us both when we had that meeting where Gareth was expressing concern. And of course, I was just ploughing forward in my usual manner of let's get things done and let's drive forward with this project. And I hadn't really, and I don't think our team had really taken into account what a different perspective your team has and a different role that your team has than you. And I think we almost thought, well, Gareth will know all of our stuff. He doesn't need us to explain every last thing. He doesn't need me to be very explicit about the fact that sometimes week 6 is only organised in week 5. And it's not always organised 12 weeks ahead or 12 months ahead. And I think that allowed you to understand that the scale of the project was perhaps easier to achieve through different milestones and different time points, rather than it all having to be ready in September and us kind of staring down the barrel of that particular gun. But again, that brought it back to, well, if Gareth feels like that, gosh, what must students feel like? We need to give that some attention. So I think our own reflections are helping us in the process of designing those sessions for students, and how clear we have to be, and how maybe segmented we have to be, and how maybe repetitive with the message we have to be. What is this session for? How is it going to help you? What's it targeted towards, etc. So you taught me lots in that session, whether you realise it or not.
I needed some serious scaffolding, Lisa, I think.
You did need some serious scaffolding, yeah.
Okay, so I'll quickly go through the next two because I want to leave time for questions and a bit of feedback as well if we can. But in terms of learning, for me, it's been an extraordinarily steep learning curve, slow, right angle, not sure how to call it. And sometimes it has felt like that time I talked about that I might fall off it. But the main key about learning for this, for me, is that what we're trying to do is a way of supporting all students, I guess. And there's a group of students that we know from wellbeing who might be really struggling but will never come forward for wellbeing support. And sometimes the students that are struggling the most are the ones that won't come forward. They won't organise themselves to do it. They might be too suspicious of our service. And what we're trying to do with the compassionate curriculum and building wellbeing into it is a way of reaching all students. Whatever they're going through, it's potentially going to have a positive effect on them. So for me as a nurse and someone who, that's kind of my value base in terms of supporting people who are struggling, it really fits with the idea of learning a new way to support people who are well-being.
Yeah, I think Gareth's, again, different perspective allowed us to just take a moment and to break from we're an established team. We are 7 academics. We all teach together. We always have. We don't team teach with anybody else. We're a real insular group sometimes. And so we have kind of, maybe a groupthink way to go forward. And it's been really refreshing to have another lens to look at our course and to say, and to have the confidence to say, because you are the expert, say, hang on a minute, how are the students going to feel about that assessment that you've just said to them after week 6? Is that perhaps the best assessment? Even though you're desperate to do that type of assessment, why don't we do it at a later time? So it's been really powerful to have a different set of eyes on what we would normally do, or what we might feel comfortable in doing, or we want to repeat. So we're getting a constant Friendly challenge, which is really good from a different perspective. All at the heart of that challenge is, will the students be okay? Can we care for the students in a better way? Can we reach those ones in the curriculum through those weekly sessions rather than expecting them to come to us? And I thought about this again after we'd had a meeting about this presentation. And I recently took a group of level 5 students to Tenerife. They were brilliant. They were fabulous students. Most of them are really able, really, really committed. They turn up, they're doing stuff. We went to a wellbeing centre during the field trip, and we met a wellbeing practitioner, and she casually said to us all, "I'll be at the barbecue later. If anyone wants to speak to me about anything, I'll just be available." And I was absolutely shocked about how many students I think, "Oh, they're great, they're getting on with it, they're really able," went to go and see her. It was really shocking, not shocking awful, shocking as in surprising. These students who I think present really well in the classroom, who are still able to be in that room, still able to be assessed, but they had all this other stuff going on that they felt that they could go and share with somebody. So I think that gave me even extra impetus to keep going. And our last one.
Yeah, finally we gave it. I'm not going to say what I was going to say, actually. I thought I'd take this opportunity because all the school-based practitioners are here today. So if anyone's here from schools and you've not had a chance to meet your school-based wellbeing practitioner, which is my role, they're all here today. So you might want to speak with them if you've not met them in the break. Because
I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves.
yeah, good idea.
Unless my next few times someone say, yeah.
So hello, I'm Daisy Padmore. I'm the school-based wellbeing practitioner for the Whole School and the Built Environment Engineering School.
Hello everyone, I'm Kelly. I'm school-based practitioner for School of Social Sciences, Humanities and School of Education.
Hi everybody, I'm Michelle Monkman and I am the school-based wellbeing practitioner for the School of Arts and the School of Sports.
Hi everyone, my name's Rich. I am the school-based practitioner for the School of Health. So the one school. The big one there, eh?
Yeah.
I feel like you've all attained celebrity status in the room now, wellbeing practitioner.
And we've got Hannah at the back, who's our manager.
I'm lucky enough to have these guys on my team.
Yeah. So just in terms of that idea of give, if you haven't linked up with your schools-based practitioner, today's a really good chance to do that. And a friendly bunch, we'd really like to meet up with the schools.
I guess from a course perspective and a course director perspective and a CLT associate perspective, I'm hoping to give back from the sessions or the ideas that we create because we've been afforded the time and the opportunity to work together so well. I'm hoping to keep coming in front of you, to keep feeding ideas into CLT, to share any resources that you want once they're all prepared in terms of how we have gone about embedding wellbeing. So we're at the design stage at the moment. This is how we're hoping to assess some of the impact. I don't think we can go as far as cause and effect. Of course we can't, and causal links, but we're hoping to see some improvement maybe in some of these levels. And you'll forgive me if I've used KPIs, but KPIs was one of the ways I got to design the course as it is, by not ignoring the KPIs, by speaking the language that Phil Cardew needed me to speak, and then to sit behind it and think, well, what can I do there in that space that I've created myself? So, but of course, we hope, we do hope to have a positive impact. And if that means KPIs are achieved, brilliant. If they're not, we'll go back and rework it. But those are some of the ways that we're thinking about trying to gauge the success of all of the things that we're hoping to do. And we didn't say, but the course is being introduced in September 24 for the first time. Last one.
I wonder if it'd be possible to just leave this up over break. Is we're kind of using today as a scoping exercise for doing this with Advance HE at a bigger conference. So would really appreciate your expertise in this, in critiquing today's presentation, and if you can, is to give us some feedback. And I think particularly, does it make sense? And are there things that sort of doesn't need to be in there? Are things that you'd like to see to be in there? And does the kind of format work like this? But please feel free to fire away, because we've got time to change this presentation if needs be, haven't we, Lisa? At least I think we have.
We have, yeah. We might wake up at 3 a.m. and worry about it still yet, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have time for a couple of questions before the last one. Go ahead.
Sorry, I think that goes on that business. What's the main difference before this intervention and the one that's so was this intervention in form of a module, or did you actually get assessments and the daily?
Everything's changed on the course. So I now have a level 4 that's a pass-fail model, that's 6-week teaching blocks and projects rather than modules. Yep. We have no summative assessment, or one piece of summative assessment at level 4. So we've really changed. We've changed the content. We're basing the content around 3 steps of kind of critical pedagogy of understanding the world and your relationships. But for us, that means exposing all the good, bad, and ugly of tourism, not just the lovely headlines that you see. It means working with it and operationalising and discussing and problematizing at level 5. It means reimagining at level 6. So it's quite the whole kind of alignment of the journey that we take the students through. We thought needed lots of that scaffolding. We are to a certain extent have pulled the rug from underneath our students, but hopefully have lots of cotton wool waiting there for so it's a complete redesign of the course, and this is one element of it that sits, I think, the key element really. So almost everything has been changed at level 4. Level 5 looks very similar in terms of structure, but it returns, because of the 25% to degree, it returns to more summative assessments per project. And we know we've got to make that transition between 4 and 5 really smooth. That's something that we're already thinking about.
I think I really like, sorry, I'm going to just talk if no one today. I really like the way how you just put it in perspective, that you're actually speaking the language that managers need to hear, in terms of, because when I don't speak that language, most of the things are being overlooked by managers, which is unfortunate. So that's great. Second, with practical advice, how can we put, like you like Tenerife, of course, other international field trips in our curriculum?
Well, okay. Well, I'll tell you, I've had an international field trip in my curriculum for the past 7 years. And the way I achieved it first year, and it's been recorded, so shall I say that? It out. I designed so our field trip is a 5-day field trip. We pay for it for the students from the students' fees. That said, we have no specialist equipment required for our course. So no one needs to buy, the university doesn't need to invest in any resources for us. We need a lecture room and some workshops, that's it. So we have a bit of headroom, financial headroom there. But in the first iteration of the new course, the old course rather, we designed level 5 all around the innovation and the product development cycle. And the field trip was crucial for the research out there and understanding the resources of an island and the trends that need to be matched to that resources to flatten demand in tourism across the whole year rather than on the time.
So is there an actual assessment?
Yes. So in the old course, all assessments hinged off that field trip. That's how I got it paid. Giving away too many secrets now.
I'm going to go for Belinda the last question, and then we've just got one short slide from Janice before we hit the break. So go for it, Belinda.
I just think it's really exciting that you're moving away from our usual way of working, which might be, oh, we've got an issue with KPIs, right? Okay, we need to, look at the curriculum again, look at how we're assessing students and put some fixes there. Or, oh, we won't make changes to the curriculum, but there's clearly an issue with continuation and student experience. Therefore, we'll do some work with them around well-being and coping. What you're doing is saying you can't separate those two things out. If you change one and you don't change the other, you're going to have very limited, if any, impact. So I think it's really exciting. It has tremendous potential, and it will be really great to see if that approach is much more transformative and much more effective. It's never going to be 100% effective. We can't expect that. But if it makes much more of a difference to our students, and therefore to those of us who work with students, than a sort of, blinkered one side.
It's interesting you say that, because one of the biggest battles was to get all of the staff to believe that we could do it on a blank piece of paper and forget the KPIs and forget the constraints. That was what my research was about. Or what are all of the constraints? We knew them inside out. And to forget those, to write the new course, and then I retrofitted it to the KPIs. But that's the sales manager in me from 20 years.
Right.
I now have given away all my secrets.
You haven't, I know you haven't. Lisa and Gareth are around, so if there's questions and stuff at the break, they're around.